and thanks for inviting me over here to Jakarta. Thank you for having me indeed. My name is Mikko Hyppönen. I am the Chief Research Officer for WithSecure Corporation, and I am a global cybersecurity expert. So how do you become a global expert in anything? To me, it was really simple. The way you become an expert is that you pick a field. I picked cybersecurity, and then you just work in the field forever. After you work in the field for decades, then everybody will assume that you must be an expert. And that's what I've done. I started analyzing malware in the very early 1990s. Back then, viruses were spreading on these. This here is a floppy disk. I'm very well aware that there's many people in the audience who have no idea what this is. But this is how we used to carry data from one computer to another. And this particular floppy is infected with a virus called Form, which was one of the most common viruses 30 years ago. Back then, cyber attacks were not spreading through the networks or through the internet. They were physically carried from one computer to another. And that seems like an awfully small problem when you compare it to the problems we have today, because we have global networks at our disposal today. But it was a very real problem back then. And that's how I started my career. I started looking at these early viruses and trying to decode how they worked. I worked with reverse engineering some of these early viruses that looked like this. This is VirusSoft from 1990, because back then viruses would show messages to users. You know you got infected by a piece of malware because your computer stopped working and you would get a message like these, or these, or these. These are all examples of the viruses I worked with in the beginning of my career. And I wouldn't believe if someone would have told me in the beginning of my career that the world is going to change. Eventually, the viruses that we saw back then would be written by a completely different kind of cyber criminals. Because all these early viruses were written by teenage boys for fun. That has changed. Today, when we look at the attackers, they're either making it for money or they're making it for a government, for espionage or for sabotage purposes. The time of happy hackers writing viruses, showing stupid messages to users, that's long gone. Today, it's mostly about fraud. It's mostly about money. And it's also a great example on how technology changes the world around us. Nothing changes the world as quickly and as much as technology revolutions. We've seen this over and over again. When you think about revolutions that we saw a long time ago, like electricity revolution, now it seems that electricity has been with us forever, but it really hasn't been a common thing for more than 150 years. But in those 150 years, electricity became completely mandatory. Modern societies don't work at all without electricity. And that's exactly what's happening right now with connectivity. Connectivity is going to become exactly as important for our societies than electricity. The connectivity revolution is only 30 years old. The internet revolution started in the 1990s, but already during these 30 years, it has become almost as important as electricity. Eventually, it's going to be exactly as important as electricity. And we are already in the middle of the next revolution, which is the artificial intelligence revolution or the generative AI revolution. And this revolution is probably going to be bigger than the internet revolution. And it's also the fastest revolution we've seen so far. It took a long time to get started, but when generative AI finally became a thing 2 years ago, it has changed the world very quickly. And we've only seen the very beginning of these revolutions. However, there's one thing we have to keep in mind. When we are faced with a big technology revolution, we tend to overestimate the speed of the revolution and underestimate the size of the revolution. What I mean by this is that when internet revolution started somewhere in the mid-1990s, we thought it would have been faster. Some of you still remember the dot-com boom of 1999 or 2000. During that time, the stock valuations were sky high because people were given promises about internet, how internet is going to change the world. Promises like, one day we will all be doing shopping online, or one day we will all be watching movies online. Well, of course, we are today doing that. We're all doing shopping online, we're all watching movies online, but we were not doing that in 1999 or 2000 or 2001. We were talking about it in 1999 or 2000, but it didn't become a reality until a decade later. But then when it did become true, the revolution was actually much bigger than what anybody would have expected. And I believe the same thing will happen with the AI revolution. It's already changing the world, but it's probably going to take a little bit longer than we think right now. But when it really happens, it's probably going to be bigger than what we can think right now. We can't imagine the ways it's going to change the world. Just like we couldn't imagine the ways internet changed the world. In 1999, nobody was thinking that the main tool for accessing the internet is going to be a device everybody has in their pockets. Because in 1999, everybody had computers, desktops. Something like that is going to happen with the AI revolution as well. It's going to be a slower revolution than we believe right now, but it's going to be a bigger revolution we can vision right now. And every technological revolution brings us upsides and downsides. And we cannot just choose the benefits. We will get the downsides as well. The internet revolution was the best thing ever. I love the internet. Connectivity brought us so many benefits, so many business opportunities, so many new forms of connectivity, so many new mechanisms for entertainment. But at the same time, it also brought us global crime and global risks. Today, when you think about the kinds of crime we are exposed to, big part of these crimes are completely free of geography. It doesn't matter where the criminals are. So let's talk about the criminals. The title of my talk is Cybercrime Unmasked. So let's unmask some cyber criminals. What do cyber criminals look like? How do they live their lives? Let's look at some pictures. Here we have Mr. Raymond Abbas, one of the caught cyber criminals. And when you scroll through his Instagram, you get a feeling about the kind of lifestyle cyber criminals are living. Driving around in Rolls Royces and Mercedes G-Series, flying around with private jets. Another example, this guy here is called Maxim Boyko. Headquartered in Moscow, he's posing with his piles of cash and Rolls Royces. This is the life of cyber criminals or people who launder money for cybercrime gangs. And the problem here is twofold. Problem number one, the money you can make with cybercrime is significant. Problem number two, these guys posting images of their lifestyle only breeds more new cyber criminals. Smart kids who have technology skills living in environments where they might not have the same opportunities as everyone else, they see these and they look up to these crime leaders. I want to do that. I want to drive a Rolls Royce. I want to get rich. And the quickest and easiest way to do that for many technology-equipped people might be to go into life of crime. And that's the problem. That's what we really should be capable of avoiding. We must be better in catching online criminals, not just to take them away from the market, but also to show to potential newcomers into the life of crime that crime doesn't pay, not even online crime. Online crime doesn't pay either. That's what we should be able to show to people looking up to these criminals. And crime has changed. It's changed because the internet has no geography. There's no borders, there are no distances, and there is no geography online. Now let me illustrate this to you with this movie. Some of you might remember the original Ocean's 11 movie starring George Clooney, Brad Pitt, and Matt Damon. In this movie, this group of gentlemen thieves create a daring heist where they break into the vaults of the two largest casinos in Las Vegas, MGM Grand and Bellagio, and then they steal tens of millions of dollars in cash from the vaults of these casinos. All right, that's a movie, but that's sort of what traditional crime looked like. You have a group of thieves physically going somewhere to steal physical cash. All right, let's see what's happening in the real world.
Back here at home in Las Vegas, a massive data breach. Caesars confirms it was hit by hackers who got guests' private information. Meanwhile, another apparent cyber attack has MGM Resorts reeling. Miguel Almaguer reports.
This is from last year, and this is not a movie. This is real. Cybercriminals hit the very same two casinos as we saw in the movie. They hit MGM Grand and Bellagio. And again, they stole tens of millions of dollars, except this time they didn't steal cash from the vaults. They were using ransomware to lock these computers and then demand a Bitcoin payment for the ransom in order to unlock the systems. One of the large casinos, Caesars Palace, actually paid the ransom, netting the criminals tens of millions of dollars. And the more companies pay the ransom, the bigger this problem becomes. It's really easy for us to say, never pay the ransom, whether you're a consumer being targeted with a scam or having your photos stolen, or a large enterprise or company getting hit by ransomware. Saying and giving the advice that don't pay the ransom, that's easy to do. Then actually not doing it is a totally different story. If your operations are shut down, if your patent applications and private information is about to be leaked, the decision makers at the top level of these companies have a really hard choice to make. And this problem is only getting bigger. We've been tracking ransomware attacks for a decade now. Bitcoin-enabled ransomware attacks started in 2013. And for a while, we were keeping this like a map of different ransomware families until the map became so large I couldn't fit it on a single slide anymore. And it's not just that these ransomware attacks are hitting companies and locking their systems. In addition of locking the systems and encrypting all the data, these groups also steal the information, like email archives and data document archives from these companies. And if you don't pay the ransom, you end up on a leak site. That's what a leak site looks like. That's the leak site of Lockbit. Lockbit is one of the largest ransomware gangs in the world. This website is running in Tor hidden service, and it lists all the companies this group has attacked. Now, I meet a lot of companies. I meet a lot of CISOs and CSOs and CTOs and CEOs. And I haven't yet met a member of a leadership team or a board member of a large company who would estimate that we're going to be hit next. Nobody expects to be hit next. The typical comment I hear from leadership team members or board members is that, why would they hit us? We're not that interesting. We're not that big. We're not that visible. We don't have a huge brand. We're in a faraway country. Why would the attackers hit ransomware against our systems? Certainly they will go after someone else. And what I always show to these leaders is a leak site. I take out my computer, I connect to Tor, and I go to the leak site simply to show them how large these leak sites are. Just scroll around and show them how many companies have been hit today, or last week, or last month. Because the list of companies that have been hit doesn't end. There's more and more companies from all over the world. Organizations of all kinds, of all sizes, from everywhere. Small companies, large companies, enterprises, public sector, private sector. It's as if someone would have shot at the internet with a shotgun, hitting random targets. And when they see just how many victims there are, they realize that if these companies were hit, we can be hit as well. And the reason why it looks so random is that these groups, they don't choose a particular victim. They don't have a list of companies to hit. No, they start from a vulnerability. Like, we have a way in. There's this vulnerable piece of software. If somebody's running that software, we know we can get into their networks. Then they simply scan the whole internet. IPv4 address space has 4.2 billion IP addresses. You can scan it in 5 hours. In 5 hours, they have a list of every single organization in the world that they can break into. And that list is fairly random. And that's exactly why this list looks random. And this is a completely global problem. On this list, right next to each other, you have a furniture manufacturing company out of Denmark, then a bank from Canada, then a steel company from Vietnam. All business areas from everywhere in the world. And of course, some of the victims are local here in Indonesia as well. There's been plenty of news about attacks right here in Indonesia by some of the largest ransomware gangs. In fact, if you go to these lists of victim companies and just search for Indonesia, you'll find plenty of examples of Indonesian organizations getting hit. So Lockbit is one of these gangs. That's far from the only one. If you look at the largest ransomware groups, there's groups like Snatch and QuantumX, Akira, Black Pasta, and on and on. I call these groups cybercrime unicorns. These are unicorns, just like in startup tech sector, when a startup grows big enough, we start to call it a unicorn. Well, if these would be companies, they would be considered to be unicorns. If you look at their revenue, if you look at their profit, if you look at their growth, they absolutely would be unicorns. But of course, these are grime groups. They will never be doing an IPO. There will never be an exit for them. But that's a good way of thinking about how large this problem has become. Another thing which is interesting is branding. These groups, they have a name, they have a website, they have a logo. These are crime groups branding themselves, which might sound weird, like why would an organized crime group build a brand for themselves? But then again, if you think about real world organized crime, well, they do branding as well. Groups like Hells Angels or Bandidos or Los Zetas or Yakuza or Cosa Nostra. Some of the best known brands in the world are criminal brands, scary brands, brands like Hells Angels. These are very well known brands which are scary, and that's exactly what these cybercrime organized crime groups are trying to build. Groups like Lockbit and Akira are building a brand which is known around the world and a brand which is scary. Now imagine that you work for the IT department of a company and you come to the office Monday morning only to realize that, oh my God, we've been hit by ransomware. And then, oh my God, it's Lockbit. Oh my God, it's Quantum X. Oh my God, it's Akira. Because you know these groups by name. You know them by reputation. You know this is serious. You know that these attackers know what they're doing. You know that there's no way of getting your files back. But you also know that if you pay the ransom, they will deliver. So they're building a reputation that they're criminals, but that they are honest criminals. They're building a reputation that they're criminals you can do business with. They need to have a reputation because otherwise no one would pay the ransom. If they would have a reputation that paying doesn't work, or if you pay, you still don't get your files back, nobody would pay. So they do try to deliver what they promise. And these brands have become so strong, people are even taking tattoos of the logos of these groups. That's how strong brands they are. Just like people are taking Hells Angels tattoos, some people are taking Lockbit tattoos. One of the best known groups was known as Evil Corp. This group no longer exists. It was dismantled 2 years ago. Evil Corp, also known as R-Evil, was run by a guy called Maxim Yakubets, and this is Maxim's Lamborghini. In fact, here's a photo from downtown Moscow. You can see Maxim driving in the traffic with his Lambo. On both of his sides are his arms sergeants. The way it works in Russian cybercrime is that the big boss gets the Lambo, the sergeants get the Audis. That's the way it goes. Here's Maxim doing donuts in Moscow traffic. So how come this group doesn't exist anymore? It's because of him. R-Evil attacked Colonial Pipeline and JBS Foods, both American companies and both examples of critical infrastructure. Colonial Pipeline is the second largest oil and gas network in North America. JBS Foods is the largest meat producer on the planet. Clearly, they're both critical infrastructure. And when R-Evil Group attacked Colonial Pipeline and JBS Foods, that woke up US President. When President Biden had private meetings with President Putin about how to take some control of these Russian cybercrime gangs, which are not directly part of the Russian government, but do operate from Russia. And then US State Department started offering $10 million rewards for information leading to the arrest of members of this gang. $10 million to anybody who provides information which leads to arrest of R-Evil cybercrime gang leadership. That's the same amount of reward US State Department has been offering for information leading to the arrest of terrorist leaders. So US government is taking cybercrime as seriously as they are taking terrorism. And these kind of rewards work, because you don't just get $10 million, you also get immunity from prosecution. Now imagine that you are a member of a crime gang like this. You're a member of REvil, and then you see the news. US State Department is offering me $10 million if I rat all my friends. If I rat my friends, all my friends will go to jail, but I won't. I'm going to get immunity and I'm going to get $10 million. And then you realize that all of your friends are reading the news as well. So the first one to move wins everything and everyone else loses everything. It becomes a game theory experiment very quickly. And this works. This is why REvil is no longer operational. So cybercrime gangs like Lockbit and REvil exist to make money. That's why we call them cybercrime. But governments are involved in attacks as well. When we look at the offensive attacks launched by government agencies, militaries, or intelligence agencies, they've traditionally had one of two motives. It's either been about espionage or about sabotage. Espionage makes a lot of sense because information has changed. Spying and espionage is about collecting information, and information has changed. When you think about spies, old school spies were like James Bond. James Bond would go to the information to steal the information because information used to look like this. It used to be physical. It used to be something you could touch. If you want to steal my notes, you have to come to me. I'm right now in Jakarta. You have to come to Jakarta to steal this piece of paper. This is what spying used to be like. You have to find physically where the information was, and then you went there. Well, today information is data. Almost all of the information we generate is not on paper. It's on our computers. It's in our networks, and you don't have to go anywhere to gain access to that information. This is why spies have moved online. And then we have governmental attacks which are sabotage, with some well-known historical examples like Stuxnet, which was the attack from US and Israeli governments to attack the nuclear enrichment program of Iran. And they managed to delay the Iranian nuclear program by several years with cyber attacks. That's not espionage, that's actually sabotage. They were destroying devices with cyber attacks. And when sabotage happens during wartime, then we don't call it sabotage, then we call it war. And that's exactly what's happening right now, for example, in Ukraine. Russian military is launching destructive cyber attacks on Ukrainian civilians. And we don't call it sabotage, we call it cyber war. Cyber war is a very real thing, but it does require a real war to be happening for us to call it cyber war. Otherwise, it's just cyber sabotage. So I told you that all the governmental attacks are either espionage or sabotage, but there is one exception. One government which is not doing government-funded and government-operated cyber attacks for espionage or for sabotage, but actually makes them to steal money. And that government is North Korea. North Korea is the only country in the world which has over and over again done cyber attacks in order to steal money from other governments or even from private companies. Why? Because North Korea is the most heavily sanctioned country in the world. So they're doing cyber attacks to fix their budget deficit. Maybe the best known attack from North Korean government was the so-called SWIFT attack targeting multiple banks, most famously the Bangladeshi National Bank. They tried stealing close to $900 million from the National Bank of Bangladesh. They succeeded in stealing $81 million. And they've done this over and over again. We've seen this multiple times where North Korean hackers working for the North Korean government are using international banking networks to try to gain access to foreign funds. They've also done similar attacks targeting cryptocurrency systems. North Korean hackers have multiple times hacked into cryptocurrency exchanges to steal Bitcoin and Ethereum and other cryptocurrencies. They love cryptocurrencies. Why? Because you cannot sanction cryptocurrencies. It's easy to sanction dollars or euros or any of the real world currencies. It's impossible to sanction cryptocurrencies because cryptocurrencies are currencies based on mathematics. And mathematics don't care about your sanctions. We cannot change math with politics. That's why countries under sanctions love cryptocurrencies. And cryptocurrency revolution is yet another example of a technology revolution which brings us upsides but also downsides. And we cannot choose just the upsides. We will get the downsides whether we like them or not. In fact, what is the biggest theft in history? The biggest theft, the biggest heist, the largest amount of money ever stolen by anybody. You might be thinking about some big bank robberies or maybe some famous art heists or diamond heists, and you would be wrong. The biggest theft in history happened last year when North Korean government hackers hacked into a system called Axie Infinity and stole $625 million worth of cryptocurrency. It didn't make big headlines, but it should have, because that's the biggest theft in history. Like, you couldn't even steal $625 million without technology, without computers, without the internet, and without cryptocurrencies. And that happened last year. Now, it's fairly easy to launder money if it's already cryptocurrency. But what about this? With the Bangladeshi bank heist, North Korean government hackers stole successfully $81 million, and that's dollars. So how do you launder it? How do you get that money into North Korea so they can use it to fund their nuclear arms program? Well, the way they did it here was that they moved the money to Philippines, to Manila, to two casinos, Casino Soler and Casino Midas, where they cashed tens of millions of dollars into gaming chips. And then they had physical people playing games with these chips, laundering the money in casinos. So how do we know this was North Korea? Well, we know it was North Korea because 2 years earlier we investigated the hack of Sony Pictures in the United States. Sony Pictures, the movie studio, was hacked because they put out a movie which was laughing to the North Korean leader. And as an end result, Sony Pictures was hacked by North Korean hackers. And when we investigated the case, amongst the data stealing routines of the malware, we found this password, which we never made public anywhere. And the very same password was used 2 years later in one part of the code, which was used in the Bangladeshi bank heist. No one else knew about the password. It is North Korea. And if you're interested in this case, which is one of the biggest cyber cases in history, there's actually a whole movie about this. The movie came out earlier this year. It's called $1 Billion Heist. I know because I am in the movie myself. In fact, well, yeah. Fun fact, the photo you see here, I took this photo myself on Qatar Airways as I was flying from Doha to Melbourne. You can see from Doha to Melbourne in the corner over there. They were actually playing this movie on Qatar Airways. And I remember I was browsing through the different movies and I saw that, well, hey, $1 Billion Heist, I know this movie. And I started playing it, and then I was showing the flight crew that, hey, look at this, that's me. And they were like, yes, that's you, that's true, it is you. That's a bit meta, but it's a good movie, I recommend it. So if these technology revolutions are changing the world for the better, but also for the worse, we are now faced with the biggest shift in technology ever because of generative artificial intelligence. And as we start speaking about AI, I, of course, have to show you a deepfake video.
Greetings everyone, my name is Mikko and I hunt hackers. Thank you all for joining our conference today. It's great to see you all. Greetings everyone, my name is Mikko and I hunt hackers. Thank you all for joining our conference today. It's great to see you all.
Here on the left we have Laura, our threat intel lead, and here on right we have Mikko. Laura is real, Mikko is fake. But it's a pretty good deepfake. This is the level of homemade deepfakes today. This is what you can do on one home computer. And the end result is so good that to me, it looks like me. And I should know because I am me. So you can fool people fairly easily, even with homemade deepfakes today. And this has grand implications to all of us. Humans have great capability of recognizing faces. For millions of years, our genes have been built so that we can recognize each other. Many animals recognize themselves from things like smell or the way they move. We recognize each other from faces. So we've learned to identify each other from faces, and we can no longer trust that. This is one of the reasons why identity is so important, and being able to do secure identity verification is so important. And this field is moving very fast. In May, I was in San Francisco. I needed a car to take me to a hotel, so I ordered a car with my mobile phone. But instead of using Uber or Grab or Lyft, I ordered a car with a mobile app called Waymo. Waymo drives cars looking like that. Here's a video I took inside of Waymo as I'm sitting on the passenger seat. This car, without a driver, was taking me to my destination in the middle of traffic jams, in the middle of rush hour, avoiding pedestrians jumping on the streets and several roadworks. And it cost me less than a half of what an Uber would have cost me because there was no human driving the car. This is already happening today. The world is changing very quickly because of generative AI. So let's talk about that. Generative AI. Generative AI sounds more impressive than what it really is. Generative AI is a machine learning system that can generate content. That's why we call it generative AI. You show it content, and then it can generate content like that. You show it text, and then it can generate text. You show it text in English, and it can make English text. You show it text in Indonesian, it makes Indonesian text. You show an algorithm movies, and then it can generate movies. You show it music, and it can do music. That's all it is. It's a generator. But we've been waiting for the capability of do this at this scale for decades. The first time I read about artificial intelligence was in 1983, when I was a teenager. So for 40 years, we've been waiting for two things. Number one, for all information to be turned into data. And that's where we are today. Today, all information is data, which means we can feed it into computers. And then, number two, we've been waiting for computing power, that we can actually take all of mankind's knowledge, all of the information we've generated, and have these machines learn it. So, today, every book written by humans anywhere in the world is available as data, as bits. Almost every book ever written. And we have fed all of these books into these large language models. That's how they learned all human languages. Then we've fed all code that you can find from services like GitHub into these large language models, and they learned all programming languages. But maybe the best example on how quickly generative AI is changing right now is from this slide that I showed to our customers and clients in an event a year ago. 12 months ago, we had a customer meeting, and I was speaking about how quickly we are seeing new projects come out. Some of these projects don't even exist anymore because they've changed names. But one project I mentioned in particular was called Music LM. And I did a demonstration a year ago. I gave a prompt to a music generator. Make me a song like this. And you can hear from the music that it's basically what the prompt is. Give me a song with a rising synth, with a lot of arpeggio and reverb. And that's what it did. All right. Not too bad. Not too impressive either. It's not going to be a major hit, is it? But it might be something you could hear in the background in a shopping mall or in an elevator. That was a year ago. Earlier this year, I made a forecast that during 2024, we will see a top 40 hit made entirely by artificial intelligence. Some of you have heard songs made by systems like Suno or Udio, and they are becoming surprisingly good. I made the forecast in May, a couple of months ago. Right now, at this very moment, there's a song called Wer knallt in ein Tallerhuhn, trending in the German and Austrian top 40 charts. It's a German song. When I checked yesterday, it was at number 27 in Germany and somewhere in the top 40 in Austria. It's a song made entirely by artificial intelligence with the system called Udio. You give it a prompt, give me a song about teenage boys smoking vapes and wearing Gucci clothes and how a girl falls in love with these boys. That's what the song is about. And then this system has composed the song, arranged the song, played the song, written lyrics for the song, and then it has sang the song. Would you like to hear the song? Here's the song.
Letzte Woche Kirmes war anders wild. Ich hab mit den Chayas am Autoscooter gechillt. Da hab ich einen Tallerhuhn aus der Ferne erkannt. Mit Seiten auf Null und Vape in der Hand. Er hat ne dicke Schale und wirkt richtig hart. Aber er fragt jeden Kerl, ob er Probleme hat. Ich glaube, ich bin verknallt in einen Tallerhuhn.
All right.
Mit Louis Gürtel, Gucci
Pretty
Cap
good.
und Air Max Schuhen.
It's not a bad song. And maybe a bit surprising, really. Maybe not exactly what you expect an artificial intelligence song to sound like. But that song, in its entirety, is made by a machine. No humans involved. No humans playing any instruments or singing anything. All the lyrics, which of course are German, are written by a machine. This is where we are today. And this poses great questions to us. Like, for example, the song is right now making a lot of money in Germany. Who gets the royalties? The machine? The algorithm? The person who wrote the prompt, which is just one sentence? The company which made the algorithms? Or maybe the songs which were used to teach the algorithm? Maybe the creators of those songs should be getting credit as well. Great questions, and we don't have answers for them. But we used to think that only humans can make creative things. Only humans can make art. And clearly, that's changing. And I don't like this. I hate the idea that the best poets in the world will be machines, or that the best songs will be made by machines. But that's where we're going. Now, there's still room for humans as well. I think we will still want to see a real rock star playing a real guitar on a real stage instead of a robot, but most likely many of the songs they will be playing in the future will be made by machines. I'm not a big fan of creative things being replaced with algorithms, but clearly that's where we're going. And one of the creative things that will be replaced by machines is writing code. Programming is an art form, just like making songs. And that's going to be replaced with machines as well. Which means this revolution will be the first revolution which will be able to improve itself. We will see AI systems that will be able to modify their own code, improving their own performance. We're not there yet, but that's the direction where we're going. And this technological revolution is the first technological revolution in history which is destroying white-collar jobs instead of blue-collar jobs. All the previous revolutions, like Industrial Revolution or electricity, took away a lot of jobs from people who were doing physical labor. Well, this revolution doesn't take away any jobs from people doing physical labor, but it's taking a lot of jobs away from people doing things like writing code, or, for example, from lawyers. Every revolution has upsides and downsides. We don't just get to choose the upsides. One example of the downsides are scams fueled by deepfakes. Most of these deepfakes that we've seen in real attacks are targeting consumers, and they recycle well-known celebrities like Mr. Beast or Elon Musk.
Hello, everyone. I'm here to tell you about the Neuralink crypto token, the new cryptocurrency that will change the world forever. With this token, you have a unique opportunity to invest in the future of brain-machine interfaces.
Don't believe the video. Don't invest your money in a Neuralink crypto token. It's a scam. And it's a great example of the kinds of scams we see everywhere. If you look at these cyber problems that consumers face today, the number one problem is no longer that your computer will get infected by a virus. The number one problem today is getting targeted with a scam. Investment scam, cryptocurrency scam, auction scam, eBay scam, Airbnb scam, romance scam. That's the most likely thing you're going to get hit with. Someone fools you. Someone claims to be someone else that they are. Someone uses technical tricks to fool you, or steals your account, steals your identity. And some of these scams are really cruel. Romance scams are especially tough on the victims. Over 50% of relationships today start online. People fall in love online all the time. Scammers use this against the victims. And when the victims finally realize that they've been scammed, they don't only lose their money, they also lose the love of their life. This makes romance scams an especially cruel form of crime. But we see this all the time. Consumers face problems with scams like these. Companies face problems with deepfake attacks. We've already seen attacks where the voices of CEOs have been stolen to make phone calls to other people, typically to change account numbers or to send companies money to wrong places. We haven't yet seen examples, or we don't have evidence of examples of real-time face swaps in Teams calls or things like that, but it's only a matter of time. They might have already happened, we just don't have any recording of of a single case like that. What we have so far is voice swaps, which are happening right now. But it doesn't really matter what's happening right now, the direction is clear. Identity theft with stealing faces is a very real problem in the future. And this requires a change in attitude, a change in the way we think about identity and the way we think about video. Like if you see someone online, can you really trust that that's real? If you see a politician making a talk in a YouTube video, do you know that that's what he really said? And this reminds me of what happened with Photoshop. When Adobe released Photoshop in the 1990s, suddenly everybody could modify photos and the end results would be perfect. You wouldn't be able to tell from a still picture that it has been modified. Now, of course, it was possible to modify pictures before Photoshop, but it was hard, expensive. Now, suddenly anybody could do it. And that changed the way we looked at photos. We didn't believe our eyes anymore. Even if you saw a photo and it seemed incredible, you would think that, okay, that's probably photoshopped. That's probably not real. We changed the way we looked at images because of a technical change. And that's what's going to happen now with video. Modifying video has been possible for many, many years. Hollywood has been making deep fakes for years and years. But now anybody can do it. And that's going to change the way we look at video, or it should change the way we look at video. We shouldn't just trust what we see. What other kinds of solutions should we be thinking about in this technology revolution? Well, one thing that we have to think about is what kind of rights do these new kinds of AI agents get? We don't want to give privacy rights to AI systems or drones. We must not let them own things, because if one thing which is worrying is an AI agent gone rogue, what's even more worrying is a rich AI agent going rogue. Because we already have examples where AI systems are able to move money and gather wealth. And that's clearly going to be problematic. One thing we can do to fight deepfakes is to make sure as much of the source material that's needed to teach these systems as possible can be attributed back to the source. So TV stations and radio stations, they should be publishing all of their source material. So when they do an interview with a politician, they should take the original interview and just post it on their file server, signed with cryptographic keys, so we know that this is the original. Then later, if you see a modified version of the interview and the politician is saying something surprising, anybody could double check it. You could just go to the source material and see if he actually said it in the source material or if it has been modified. And I'm not claiming that everybody would double check everything. Of course not. But one person would. Someone would double check if that's really true, and if it's not true, they would blow the whistle. And we are more and more engaged with AI agents. If you go to a tech support site, if there's a chat support, it's highly likely that it's already an AI. And more of the systems where you call a tech support phone line, the person you're speaking with is not a person at all. It's an AI. And this makes a lot of sense. Tech support being done by AI systems is probably better than tech support done by humans. Because the AI will remember everything. It has read every manual, every support notice every white paper and it remembers everything, unlike humans. But we humans should be told when we are interacting with AI, especially if it looks like we're interacting with humans. We should be told that, by the way, this is not a human. It doesn't really change anything. We probably still prefer to get the information from that source because it's probably better than a human. But I think it's important that we know when we are interacting with humans and when we are interacting with machines. And being able to do strong authentication and identification of real humans is a key ingredient in all of this. And that's exactly what VIDA is doing. It's a crucial building block of the whole tech economy that needs to be there so we can build all the other services on top of it. And let me just finish by noting that one of the things that AI will enable in cybersecurity is the discovery of completely unknown security vulnerabilities. AI systems will be able to look at source code and find vulnerabilities and create exploits against those vulnerabilities. They will be able to find 0 days. And this is excellent if it's you who's trying to find vulnerabilities in your own code so you can fix the vulnerabilities before you ship the code. And this is awful when it's someone else trying to find these vulnerabilities in your code so they could break into your systems. Once again, we get upsides and downsides, and we don't just get to choose the upsides. We will get the downsides as well. And this theme of technology revolutions bringing us upsides and downsides is the main theme of my latest book. So if you're interested in how technology revolutions change the world, there's more of this available in If It's Smart, It's Vulnerable. Technology changes the world faster than anything else ever before. We need to adapt with the change. I wish you good luck. Thank you very much.